Okay, my friends. So this week's assignment is geometric constructions. Okay. I'm picking and choosing some of the exercises in chapter 5 of the book. Okay. And it says page 36 in my copy of the book, but for you guys, that'll start on page 45. And each of these each of these individual exercises is designed to help you wrap your head around the ways that we can use applied geometry to form shapes, okay? So for this assignment, we'll be using all the tools we used before and also our beam compass, which is this guy, right? So this guy is coming in to play as well today, because a lot of the tricks that you'll learn in this sequence are about ways of using your compass to generate applied geometric shapes, okay? If you have vellum, we're going to start drafting on vellum today, so that's a good thing to break out. And while I'm not asking you to do a title block just yet, right, this image on your assignment sheet is what I'm expecting you to turn in, so it doesn't have a title block on it. I do want a sheet border around the whole outside edge of it, and that may be something that makes sense to do at the end since it's a heavier line and you don't want to just smudge all over the place. I would go ahead and lay it out using your lighter lead, and then lay out your 6 boxes using math to divide up the space, right? And then we'll get into it and we'll talk about how each of these constructions is generated. Okay, so I'm back. I've laid out my plate. In order to get these boxes to be as equal in size as possible, I went ahead and measured 5 3/8 inches from each of these edges, which gets me a pretty close to 5 1/3 measurement for that center box as well. Okay, so let's look at our first assignment, which was to draw a line parallel to the given line at a distance r. Let's see, 5.4, right? You see this? Great. So we have an AB length. We're adding a CD line that's parallel to that AB length. And we're doing it at a random angle so that you have the practice, okay? So let's start by drawing this initial line. And I'm doing this with my lighter lead, and I'll go back in and line or trace my 2 lines with my heavier lead once I'm there, okay? Like once I've laid it out properly. So I'm gonna start with, let's start with the lower one we'll start with the upper one of these 2. So I'm just gonna kind of draw this line lightly, and then I'll measure that given distance, 6'5" inches. You'll notice in the notes on this document, all constructions are drawn in 1/2 inch scale. So 6'5" in 1/2 inch scale is the length of this initial line that we're talking about. And we'll call that the line. It's invisible to you. We'll get there. All right, so that is my 6'5" inch line. So we're given line AB, that's this line, and distance R, right, which is 2'3" on our assignment. And now we're going to use our compass, and it says with any point E of the line AB as the center and R as the radius, strike an arc, right? So R, 2'3" inches, will be the radius that I set my compass to. Got my compass. I'm gonna set the distance in my compass to 2'3" inches. And this is why this beam compass is so helpful, right? Because it's very precise as you set your measurements. Great. Now I can take any point on my initial line and I'll place the tip of my compass at that point and I will strike an arc, right? And I try and do it kind of gently, but you know, it is what it is, right? So now I have an arc. I want you to be able to see it. so it's not completely invisible. So now I can take my two triangles and use them to create a parallel line to that original line that matches this arc, okay? And the way I'm gonna do it is I'm gonna take my one triangle, line it up on that line that exists, okay? So I wanna just make it nice and square, and I wanna use the side adjacent to my right angle, right? So I'm gonna use it, one of the edges of my triangle that's adjacent to the right angle, to the 90-degree marker. Then I place my other triangle against it, okay? And now I have the ability to slide this triangle down. That's gonna give me a parallel line to that initial line. And I go right to the edge so that I'm tangent to, remember tangent from geometry class? So I'm tangent to that arc that I added, right? So you can just barely see, I mean, you can't probably see it at all, but I can just barely see the edge of that arc. And that is where I'm gonna strike my other line, okay? And then once I have this line, I can get that measurement correct on it. So I'll come back in and I'll be like, let me make this line nice and straight, okay? And I can get that correct CD measurement, right? If I want it to be exactly the same length as the original line. One of the easy ways to do that would be, again, to hold this triangle along that edge, and I can use this as a marking tool, right? I can get that measurement, transfer it with the vertical of my other triangle, okay? Then I will erase, using my eraser shield, I'll erase any extraneous, like any extra little bits of line beyond the lines that I care about, right? Which are these two parallel lines. So I'll get rid of some of that extra smudginess. And I'll also hold my eraser shield over the line I've struck in order to erase the arc that created it, okay? So now I can go back in at the end and go over that line with my HB lead when I'm finished with the whole plate. But as always, I'm trying to avoid putting down HB lead until I'm ready because it will smudge much more, okay? And you'll find that this actually on vellum, because of the surface of the paper, you'll get more smudginess than you would even on regular paper. So that's just something you want to keep in mind as you go. All right, so that is square one, done. All right, so let's see what's next. Divide a line into 7 equal parts. AB, so this is the length of the line, is 5 foot 6 inches. All right. How do we do that? Oh, that's right. We go look in our book. 5.6a says divide a line into 11 equal parts, right? And this is the basic concept we're going to use, but we're only going to get 7 equal parts out of this particular line, okay? So here we go. Draw a vertical construction line at the end of line AB, right? So we are going to draw line AB first, and the measurement we've been given is 5 foot 6 inches, and it's kind of vertical in the center of this square. It doesn't actually matter if it's exactly vertical. It could be at a slight angle just for funsies. Maybe I'll do that just because I can. And it was 5 foot 6 inches in half-inch scale, so I'm going to go in and measure it to get that exact length. Okay, so we're drawing our construction line. It's going to be perpendicular to, right? So it's vertical in this example, but it's going to be perpendicular to this line we've drawn so far. Pick a side, doesn't really matter. I'm going to take this side, okay? This is just a construction line, so I don't want it to be heavy. I want it to be nice and light. Okay. So now I have perpendicular line here, right? Set the 0 of any convenient scale at the other end of the line AB. Swing the scale until a scaled unit divisible by the number of parts, in this case we're talking about 7, lines up or intersects with the construction line. Okay? So if you look at the example given, right, what we're doing, we're gonna take our point up here. We're going to pivot along this line until something divisible by 7 lines up with this end point, okay? In this case, I'm going to try 1/4" scale and see how that does for me. Let's see what happens. No, let's try 1/2" scale. So we're going to try 1/2" scale, right? The 7, okay? So if I put the 7, which is the 7-foot mark, at that top edge, I now pivot until my 0 matches up. You see? You see? There it is. That's the 0. Okay. Now I'm going to use these 7 divisions of this line and transfer them onto that line. Okay. The way I'll do that is by marking each individual point. Okay. You see them? There they are. Yeah, now you can kind of see those 7 little dots, or they're not 7 little dots. They're divisions of 7, right? Or it's what, 6? Yeah, it's 6 lines to divide this into 7 parts. Next step is to take my triangle, okay, and I'm going to place it along this bottom edge. And this is also a time when it's useful to use 2 triangles sometimes, right, so that you can have an edge to slide against. So I might put this triangle down. I might grab my other triangle, right? I might use that sliding to be parallel trick so that I have a little space, right? So now I'm sliding this to create a parallel line. You see what just happened here? Sliding to create a parallel line. That gives me a little space to work because I do want to cross this line. Hold this very still. Bring this other triangle back in, okay? And as I slide it up, I'll get each of those lines transferring, right? So you can draw the line or not, but the part that you want to keep is this part, right? That just becomes a hash mark on your original line. So now I have my 6 divisions along this initial line that give me 7 total segments. And then I will go in with my eraser shield and everything else and erase both the smudges I've added and my construction lines. Okay, great. Next, draw a triangle with the sides that are given. So AB is 5'6", that's the longest line. Or I'm sorry, A is 5'6", that's the longest line. B is 4'6", that's the next longest line. And C is 3'3", that's the shortest line. Okay, go to 5.7 in my book. I don't know if it's exactly the same in yours, but 5.7, draw a triangle with the sides given. So this is using triangulation, okay? This will again be a task that your compass comes into play for. So we draw the first side C in the desired location, okay? So we're gonna draw the longest line as the base of the triangle. All right, great, let's do it. 5'6" for the base of my triangle. Got it, great. Now we're going to find the intersection of those other 2 lines using our compass, okay? So I will start with the 3'3" leg, which is gonna land over here, and I'll set my compass to 3'3". 3 foot, 3 inches in 1/2" scale. Great. So now I'll place the anchor point at this point here, right, on the end of that line, and I will strike an arc very, very lightly, kind of out in the space where I feel like, you can see it a little bit, right, where I feel like that is going to want to land, that intersection of those 2 beams of the triangle. Then I'll grab 4'6" on my compass. I'll open myself up just a bit to 4'6", Get that really precise. Put my anchor on the other point and strike that arc. Now I have the point for each of those two lines that will be the correct length. And I can come in with a triangle or any other straight edge and connect from each corner to that intersecting top edge. Okay, and then I'll go back in, clean all of this up with my eraser, erase those construction marks that I drew with my compass. Okay, that's my triangle, number 3. All right, so let's see, what's number 4? Ooh, draw a regular hexagon inscribed. All right, so I want a hexagon inside of a circle, and I want it to be inscribed in that circle. So, and the radius of the circle is 2 foot 10 inches. So let's look for that in the book. Ooh, here we go. Draw a regular hexagon inscribed. All right, so I'm going to draw a circle first and have a center point on that circle. So the first thing I'm going to do is give myself a mark that's the center of this circle. If I want it to be exactly centered in the square, even though it's not on this plate, what I'll do to find the center of the square is I'll connect the two opposing corners, right, in order to find that center point. And I'll just very lightly, this is just like we did when we did our starburst activity, finding the center of the plate. So that's going to be my center point of my circle. We're going to start by striking the circle, and it is 2 foot 10 inches. So I'll grab my scale rule, set my compass to 2 foot 10. That's the radius. Great. And I'll draw my circle. So step 1 was draw the circle and its center. Then I want to, oh no, that was given. It's before step 1 of my assignment task. So then it says draw vertical and horizontal center lines. Okay, so I'm going to draw a horizontal line through that center point using my T-square. This is again a construction line, so I want to keep it nice and light. And then I'll do the same thing through the center point with a vertical. Great. Now, next step. Draw diagonals through the center point using either 30 or 60 degree angles. All right, so I'm using my 30, 60, 90 triangle in order to divide this into those 6 segments, right? To make it a hexagon, there's 6 segments. So I'm going to use this guy. So now, and if I'd gone vertical, I could have gotten those 2 little wedge marks going in the other direction. So now I don't need my horizontal line anymore because my vertical plus these 2 lines I've just added give me my 6 segments of this circle. So I'm going to just carefully erase that horizontal line. Again, this is all construction, so it's all going to get erased in a minute anyways, but I'm just trying to keep things clean. All right, so now I have a circle which is divided into 6 even wedges, okay? And now I can take a triangle or any straight edge and connect those points, right, along each of the wedges, okay? I'll probably start by using my T-square in order to get perfectly vertical lines for these outside edges because of the way I drew it. If you did it the other way, right, if you went off of center for your diagonals, then you would take the T-square and make those perfectly horizontal lines instead of perfectly vertical ones. And then I can use a triangle or straight edge to come in and connect each of these points going around the circle. Great. Once you've done that, erase all your construction lines so that all that is left is what we see there on the assignment, which is a hexagon that is inscribed and no crisscross, mishmash, whatever. All right, cool. Next one. Draw an arc tangent to a line through a point. This one is tricky, right? So what you're actually going to end up with, I left some of these construction lines in this drawing so it would be clear to you what you were getting, right? But what I'm actually looking for as the final drawing is just the arc and the line that it's tangent to, okay? As well as the point. So your givens are a point, right? And a line. Okay, and then the arc you're going to draw comes from that point and touches to that line. So those are the actual final lines you're going to end up with in your drawing. Let's figure out how we get there. Okay, so we are starting with our baseline AB at 3 feet 9 inches long. And I'm going to just go ahead and draw that in real quick for us. So we have it. Beautiful. Now I'm going to draw myself a point. Doesn't really matter exactly where that point is, but if you look at the example, it's kind of up over here. So let's draw that point in. Great, you can even see it. Cool, cool. So now we have to create an arc that is tangent to this line and goes through that point. And I just made a giant smudge. Good job, me. Tangent to this point, okay? So tangent to the line goes through this point. Step 1, draw the line PT, right? So we're gonna draw a line from the point to whatever spot on this bottom line we want it to hit that tangent spot to hit, okay? So this is where my arc will now be tangent to this line. Great, next step. Draw the perpendicular bisector of PT forming line DE. So for a perpendicular bisector, we're actually looking back at an example we didn't do before. So one of the initial things that was taught was how to bisect a line, right? Using your compass. And so that, if you want to go back and take a look at 5.1b, bisect a line or an arc using a compass, that's how you find that spot that's dead in the center of this line. I'm just going to go ahead and do it though, like a boss. So let's grab my arc compass and I just need to come so that I'm a little bit past the center of my line that I need to bisect, and then I kind of come out here and I give myself a little hash mark, okay? And I'll do the same thing from the other point. And what that will give me is 2 spots that intersect with this line, okay? And I can connect those 2 lines, and I'm going to just draw that line that goes between those 2 lines, okay? And I made it nice and long because eventually this line is how we're going to get to the arc point, okay? So the next thing I do, once I have those 2, once I have this line, I'm going to take my T-square, hold it against the bottom, use my T-square to determine where along this line, this perpendicular bisector, my vertical coming from that tangent point would hit, okay? So that gives me this spot right here, okay? I'm gonna draw that a little bit harder so you can see it, sorry. Like, this is invisible. Great, so that vertical intersects with this bisector, this perpendicular bisector at that intersection point, okay? Now, I take my compass, I place the point of my compass at that intersection, I set the beam of my compass so that it lines right up with either with my point up here, right? Or my line. And I use that to create that perfect tangent to that initial line, okay? And then we can erase all of these construction lines. Okay. Okay, so now our last one is draw an arc tangent to two lines at acute angles, okay? And I've stated on here that the angle should be 55 degrees. It doesn't have to be exactly 55 degrees because obviously you don't have a 55-degree angle on your triangle. So if you wanted to do like a 60-degree angle, that's totally fine because that's a real thing that is possible. This is, by the way, in the old book. This was 5.16, draw an arc tangent to two lines at acute angles. So we're going to start there. So first I'm going to draw my two angles, or the two beams of my angle. Right, so we remember acute angles are smaller than 90 degrees and obtuse angles are wider. So we're going to just make sure this has a nice, clean intersection at the point of the angle. If you wanted to be more precise about it, you could draw the bottom angle with your T-square and then just have this vertical leg be the 60-degree angle on your triangle. Step 1. Draw lines parallel to the given lines at a distance r from them. Okay, how do I find out what the distance r is? Oh, I make it up. Perfect. Because any radius r, that's what it says. So let's pick a radius. Let's make it up. I'm going to just use whatever my compass is up to already. Okay, let's do it. So I'm just going to pick any point here and strike these two. I'm going to do it kind of out of the way a little bit, right? Because I actually am not wanting to confuse the matter. Uh-oh, I messed this all up. All right. Now I go back and I use that first, remember that first construction that's sitting under the book? I use that strategy now to create those parallel lines to these lines, okay? Because what I'm looking for is this intersection at C. That intersection point is awfully close to this tangent point. That's great. Okay, so now all I need from all of this stuff is to find that C. So I'm just going to erase the other lines, right? Because I'm really only concerned about this point where those two parallel lines intersected. Great. So now my next task is to, from the C, draw perpendicular to the given lines, okay? And that intersection from that perpendicular is going to give that point of tangency. So at the place where this would be perpendicular to here, to the given line, that's where the arc I'm going to draw will be tangent. So I'm going to come on in here and I'm going to find that perpendicular using my triangle. And carefully, and very lightly, I'll draw that perpendicular line. And I'll do the same thing over here to get that tangent point. So I need those two tangent points because that's where my arc will stop and start, okay? So now, with C as the center, right, this point that we created, and R as the radius, you can draw the required arc and it will have those points of tangency at A and B. Putting the point of it at point C and seeing that it lines up exactly with that other line. And then we'll just draw this arc exactly over to the other point, and it will be tangent exactly at those two spots. And so now we have completed the assignment, which was to draw a arc tangent to two lines that are at acute angles, okay? So now I can erase this construction situation because all I need is the two acute angles and the arc which is tangent to them. And that is this geometric constructions assignment. So once you've done that and you have all of these constructed, you can go back in with your heavier lead, with your HB lead, right? You can trace over your horizontal lines, your vertical lines, and all of your lines at odd angles with that darker lead so that your final drawing is super clear. But you will have used the lighter lead in the meantime so that you don't smudge things more than you have to. All right, great. Ta-da! Until next week, geometric constructions. Thanks, friends. I'll see you next time.